Golden Time, Volume 1, by Yoku Takamiya, narrated by Alex Kiefer. Chapter 5. Tada Bonnery has spotted me. Being made fun of in a strangely confused moment in time while that long-missed seductive bell was ringing, while gasping in pain, Bonnery certainly saw me that day, and I saw him too. The present and the past connecting in the middle of that bridge, Bonnery and I, our eyes met for only a moment. Mine, or possibly Bonnery's, maybe both sides' mistaken vision, a bad guess, an accidental misunderstanding, a mysterious illusion, a common daydream. What he thought didn't matter. Nothing mattered. Anyway, the memory of that moment in my past certainly exists. This phenomenon, whatever you might call it, as far as I'm concerned, is real. Serenely, Coco said she was trying to collect the objective facts. To summarize them, Mitsuo and I are bound by fate. That is to say, it's been proven over and over again. With a thump, she put a big paper bag from a department store, packed full of stuff, on the table in front of Bonnery. The table shaking and creaking from the weight. An older gentleman next to them, an espresso in one hand, briefly looked towards them. "Excuse me," Bonnery said, bowing his head in a working-class sort of way. A little before 3 in the afternoon, walking from campus a short distance to the cafe, which had now become outrageously memorable, the shop where they served café au lait in bowls. Thinking that perhaps they shouldn't go there a second time, they peeked into other cafes, but found them completely full, and they finally settled down here, where they thought they might be able to have a quiet conversation. If I can pile up enough objective truth before his eyes, I think even Mitsuo would not be able to avoid his responsibility. And you can say, being a little law schoolish would be a little bit of good right now. Holding her bowl in both hands, sipping café au lait as if it were soup, Coco could be seen smiling. Taking his bowl in both hands, like she was, Bonnery stared at her. I couldn't get out even though I'd had enough of the lecture. As if asking, what was that? Coco raised one of her beautifully cared-for eyebrows and looked back at Bonnery's eyes. Between deep red lips, a line of pure white teeth, smooth cheeks. The skin about her eyes was stretched smoothly. From her slim fingers, neatly manicured, to the line from her hips to her crossed legs, she was perfect in every way. Calmly returning her café au lait bowl to its saucer, she looked out the window, elegantly composed. Since that worst day, when they had escaped their awful situation, 4 days had passed. Having taken a break, it seemed that Coco had gotten back on her feet. However, well then, Kaga-san, are you really feeling better now? With how you were feeling Wednesday and all, not attending and looking like you were going to fail the class. All the first years, but you have been getting perfect attendance. I just had to have a little time, alone, by myself, thinking. And I arrived at a conclusion that, of course, I did the right thing. It wasn't a mistake. It was just right. As long as I keep to my plans, things will have to work out. Finally up to the task, even if only in front of Bonnery, as if acting the part of the perfect Kaga Coco, she slowly raised her chin and smiled with her whole face. He could not discover even one flaw, not one spot on her creamy white throat. With Coco at long last back to school, just like that, Bonnery was even more high-spirited than he had been worried before. Wounded by Yanagasawa's cold attitude, confused by Chinami's entry into the fray, and, along the way, embarrassed by Omakin, he had felt that she must certainly have been feeling down. Those 4 days, Bonnery had really been worried about Coco. The day before, he'd even called out to Linda when he spotted her in the lobby, and while leaving out the details, consulted her with what to do with Coco. Bonnery said that she seems to be lost because she's so clumsy, as if she's ashamed to join Omakin, and Linda replied, pressuring her won't do any good, but it would be boring without a partner, with a nod. If Coco was so inclined, of course they would be happy. She would always be welcome, and it's okay if she's a bit confused up until when she agrees to join. Simply calling Coco his partner just that much was making Bonnery feel strangely embarrassed. What were you thinking about? There's no mistaking Mitsuo and I are bound together, just not completely yet. There's proof, such that nobody can evade, perfect proof. Coco was stubborn to the end. Her straight brown hair spilled right down her back, held by a hairband wrapped in a deep gray and purple satin design. In her dark brown hair, it really looked pretty. Then, "Justice will be mine!" She nodded vigorously, showing her enthusiasm. She was wearing a snow-white blouse, emphasizing the courtroom style. She had on a slender, mannish vest, and a black tie, and a black miniskirt, black tights, and black high heels. She had the evidence stuffed in a paper bag, and carried a high-class brand of briefcase. Together with how she threw her head back, today's Coco seemed really, how can you say it? She seemed to be doing an impression of a sexy lawyer. Bonnery didn't even understand where Coco got her certainty. The proof, she was saying. But in reality, up to this point, seeing the so-called satisfactory relationship that Yanagasawa and Coco had, he didn't think there was such a thing in this world as pulling out objective facts. Rather, he didn't think a man's heart could be moved to one's own convenience. Though thinking about it, he didn't want to say anything negative to this Coco, just barely returned, finally, from getting back on her feet. Well, carefully saying little, resting his chin on his hand, Bonnery's cell phone buzzed. It was a text from Yanagasawa. Yana-san said the lecture's over. He's coming this way now. Did he happen to ask you if I was here too? Yes, he did, said Bonnery, nodding. Though it seemed she was coming to school after the lecture, they hadn't spoken but a bit. What are we doing? Was all Coco had said along the way. Once he came alongside Bonnery, Yanagasawa answered frankly. I wanted to talk with Coco too, amongst other things. While he was speaking that way, he gave a brief glance full of meaning that even Bonnery wasn't fool enough to not notice. He couldn't recall even one time that Yanagasawa had actually wanted to talk with Coco. As if she were satisfied, Coco's back became even straighter. Look at this, will you? Perfect! Of course, you've been worrying about me for a long time. You've repented of how coldly you were treating me. And then, little by little, unknown to yourself, I have filled up your heart. That is quite according to our perfect scenario. Then, as if just remembering it, she took out a hand mirror from her pouch, looked into it, double-checking her beautiful perfection. Eyes upturned, blinking repeatedly, trying to make a smile from ear to ear. Then, nodding as if in approval, she put away the mirror. This latest development startled Bonnery. Kaga-san, well, of course you aren't going back again. And then there's... Look, rather than waiting in vain for Yana-san, once in a blue moon... What are you saying? At long last, after waiting for him, I can present my evidence to him. With a smile quickly put back in place, saying, That's true, isn't it? He had no choice but to shut his mouth once more. Really, calling Yanagasawa here like this was bad. He had yielded to Coco's excessive self-confidence, though she couldn't deal with being rejected over and over again. Hoping for something like progress with Coco, perhaps. No, never. Won't happen. Yanagasawa was planning to turn her down once and for all, here. Besides, it seemed to Bonnery that during this time she was away from school, Yanagasawa and Chinami's relationship had been making progress. Little by little, even at the club drinking parties, it seemed, the two of them had been plenty of time to themselves. Since Yanagasawa knew all too well that Bonnery was supporting Coco, he felt no need to mention it. In fact, he would not have been surprised if they were actually starting to go out together. Anyways, shouldn't you not be getting your hopes up? Timidly, that was all he tried to say. If he were untactful, Yanagasawa might have planned to come here together with Chinami. And then, in front of Bonnery and Coco, they would slap her with the announcement that they were a couple. If such a thing were to happen, what would Coco wind up doing? Becoming perfect, and then... What would she become, really? For certain, sorry, standing petrified in a strange cold sweat. As for Bonnery, since such a Coco's near future worried him, he couldn't just decide things were getting uncomfortable around here and take his leave, claiming, "This has nothing to do with me." "Why, he didn't just come here this way perfectly. There's plenty of evidence." Looking strangely hesitant, Coco looked back at Bonnery's face, handling her paper bag as if it was something valuable. "But it's proof. Otherwise, why would I have brought it with me?" And saying, "Here he comes," she sat facing the doorway, her eyes shining. "Mitsuo, over here!" When she stood up with a flourish, like an actress, the old man sat next to them, apparently unable to deal with the noise, finally got up and moved over to the counter. "Sorry, really," muttered Bonnery in a small voice that could hardly be heard. Yanagasawa, his hair hanging down part way down the sides of his face, was standing in the entrance to the cafe, raising his voice when he saw Coco's face. "Been a while, hasn't it?" Seemed as if he were shrugging his shoulders while saying it. Chinami wasn't there, so Bonnery was able to relax for the time being. As he walked over to them, he jammed a knit cap he had taken off into the pocket of his faded jeans. The heels of his well-worn red-winged boots made the floorboard creak. Throwing her shoulders back, Coco took a step towards Yanagasawa, keeping her perfect smile directed at him. "Won't you sit down? What would you like to order, Mr. Defendant?" "Oh, be quiet. Excuse me, could I have some coffee? Be normal." You only just got here." "I won't try to escape nor hide. You have nothing to be afraid of." "Hey, what are you trying to say? Did I even set you free, or discover you hiding?" Should I really be here?" It's okay. Stay here," the two of them said at the same time, smiling, making Bonnery settle down and stop squirming. In this meeting between the guy who was loved and the girl whose love was unrequited, why was he here in the first place? "Well then, prepare yourself. I will be understood completely. My perfection?" "Something you want to say arbitrarily, as it were. Since it doesn't matter, I'll stay and listen." "Anyways, sit down, or have your feet cramped? Isn't it still too early to be getting cold feet?" "What have you been saying? Just why can't I have second thoughts?" Was this feeling like a duel? Coco's face smiling, Yanagasawa's face a mask, giving each other exactly the same cool looks. They sat down, even their timing matching precisely, like mirror images. While between the two of them the tension cracked as if there had been unseen sparks flying, Bonnery, who had been watching from the start, had been yawning repeatedly, exhausted from the stress. Oxygen simply wasn't getting to his brain. Or rather, these people were making as if they were on good terms with each other. Bonnery didn't see it that way, not even for a moment. Facing each other again, they always disagreed, would get to fighting and disputing. Somehow, the two of them argued just like they were brother and sister. "Well, let's start with me. Okay, let's start by stating the end goal. Mitsuo, who is recognized in truth as my lover, should be quickly and formally engaged." Coco preempted him with her perfect smile. Was she bewildered? Was she bashful? Were her delicate emotions wavering? Trampled by those high heels and flushed down the toilets. To all appearances, she was as self-assured as a fortress. "These are the proofs. Look through it in this order, starting with where we were born." Coco pulled a file out of her paper bag, and Yanagasawa and Bonnery leaned over a map of a city center so they could see it. "Here is the Kaga home. Here is the Yanagasawa home. In a straight line, it's about 800 meters. Close from the start. The schools were together, too. The probability of our getting to know each other in the public elementary school is very high. In summary, our meeting was inevitable. It was determined from the time we were born that we would meet somewhere. And it was fated that we would get together. We were classmates from elementary school onwards." She turned a page in the file with her beautifully painted fingernail. There was a picture glued onto some cardboard, a caption hastily written all around it. "And this was from the entrance ceremony. We're in the same picture, both of us. We were only 8 years old. We still hadn't even spoken with each other at the time. But at 7 years old, a picture of an outing, a patron visit. Mitsuo's parents and my parents were together. After that, an athletic meet. 8 years old, 9 years old, always together in pictures. Look at this, summer camp in our 5th year. Mitsuo, what's with the long hair? Then this." "Just what do you want to say?" Listen, just look. It's the graduation from elementary school. They took a picture of the two of us. We asked somebody to take it. You're sure drowning in memories, looking at your album and remembering this. What's your point with all this? Because of that. It's proof. Of what? Mitsuo and I are bound by this legitimate proof of fate. Even when the file was closed with a bang by Yanagasawa, Koko didn't turn off her smile. What I think about Mitsuo, in truth, has not changed. It's been that way since I was little. I was always together with Mitsuo. Remember when you confessed your love in first grade? Mitsuo said it too. I love Koko-chan. I'll be together with Koko-chan from now on. You said you'll become my bride, right? You said, you really did say it. Don't you remember? It was when we gave out presents at the Christmas party in first grade. You said it on the stage. My father and mother heard it too. Even my grandma heard it. That was a Christmas party. That was a play. That was a well-staged dramatization that your parents could hear. Ever since then, I've been committed to getting married to Mitsuo. Look, Koko, between us, the dating thing just won't work. But that was something between childhood friends. Again, I don't think I especially need to explain our relationship. That's something that goes without saying, right? Perhaps when we were children, we said things like that innocently, but that's because we were kids. Things like that could be said, but we're no longer little kids. Being a kid, wearing a uniform, going to and from school and studying, that's different from now. That's right, I understand that. We've grown up. Therefore, even in our relationship, we want to bring it up to an appropriately adult level. Bringing it up or whatever, it's something else though. Loving as a kid versus loving now. I love Mr. Griffin. I love Mr. Elephant. I love Koko-chan. That happy time is already over. That's something normal. Understand that. I mean, you can pretend to understand or not. That's not it. Our relationship, ever since we were born, by destiny, for eternity, has been absolutely perfect. I don't understand where you get that from. I'm fed up and already really, really done with your presumption. Because of it, how long have I been handicapped? First year of middle school, third year of middle school, second year of high school. Whenever there was a girl I liked, you'd interfere one way or another, quarrel with her, harass her, till you'd gotten her fed up with me. You've even been affecting my friends, making them keep their distance. Thanks to you, all the way through graduation, not one girl would associate with me. I was truly left alone. As far as everyone was concerned, Yanagasawa and Mitsuo had no choice in the end but to be Kaga Koko's. Fooling around is not permitted after all. So, already it looks like you're telling me you're fed up with it. Koko, having once more opened the file, Yanagasawa roughly pushed it to the side. Falling from the table, photos and memories, things like that, were all scattered by Bonnery's feet. But I haven't blamed you for what's happened until now. It's the past in any case. With childhood things in general, lacking judgment, I made childish mistakes, drifting along, I think. I'm thinking you should be taking responsibility for having come to my university and certainly for your own life. Anyway, I'm just telling you clearly in advance. I have the person that I like now. It's me, of course. Take it however you like. It's Chinami. It seems to me that a few times now you've tried to smear her name. If you so much as trouble her, put her on the spot, hurt her feelings or pester her, if you try to separate her from me, I will not be happy with you. I will hate you. I will hate Koko eternally, absolutely and perfectly to the point where it'll follow you even if you transfer to a different university. Deliberately, slowly as to be heard, Yanagasawa, with his finger as if setting a rhythm, stabbed out the words, I'm leaving you behind. With a sharp sound, Koko stood up. She looked down at Yanagasawa. Why? Her now visibly false smile vanished once, but then returned, stiffening. Why such... What's with this? I don't get you. Yanagasawa silently looked up at the scene. Koko was breathing and gasped, trying to maintain her expression, but her lips trembling more and more as she spoke. But I don't understand. Am I not special to you? Do you not remember that time you had the big backpack on? Do you remember when you lost out because of the handwriting? Who comforted you then? Were you really chosen to be a member of the relay team for the sports day who baked the birthday cake? You dropped the relay baton, didn't you? Didn't you? Who of all the others knew that? That time the girl came in first, and our class came in first overall. Who was the anchor of the girls' team then? Between Mitsuo and Simi and all the cheering, I was always such a dunce. Who ran faster than anybody else? I remember. You do? but it's impossible. Well then, when I was born and started writing love letters, who were they to? To whom? Do you know? Noticing that Coco's fingers were trembling delicately where they touched the table, Bonnery involuntarily glanced up at her face. Looking, he saw how pale now she had become. Her voice was shaking too. Even the cafe au lait bowl was rattling. He didn't need to see this. Or rather, why was he being shown this? Bonnery hid his face, covering his eyes with one hand. He could only hear the trembling voice of Coco. You know this boy I've come to love since I was born, don't you? On the occasion of my 9th birthday party, the boy who took me home. When was I feeling down because I wasn't chosen to accompany on piano? The boy for whose sake bought me from Inagore, or however you say, origami set. That boy, do you know him? But it'll never happen. Wouldn't you know? You were that person. The reason I was able to run so fast. The reason I wanted to be pretty. The one I wanted to love was you. You've always been special. To be bound to you is right. Otherwise, if it weren't so, it wouldn't be perfect. Unless I was perfect, then I would not be able to get you to love me. Then what was I to do? So always, hey, I've tried perfectly. Hey, why am I not special to you? Quietly raising his eyes a fraction, Yanagasawa gave Coco a penetrating look. Bonnery wished he could leave. If Coco had noticed how badly she was shaking, she probably would have gotten up and left long ago. Answer me! Haven't I loved you since I was little? Wasn't I raised with you, for you? And yet, why am I not special to you? Why am I not even important to you? So please answer me! She repeated over and over again, whining like a little kid, unable to listen and beginning to tremble pitifully. No way. Are you an idiot? Of sympathy, there was not a trace. His expression was one of anger. Yanagasawa was angry. I don't think you ever understood me. It was always just about you. For that reason, you don't understand. Standing up, pointing at her with his finger to the tearful female childhood friend, Yanagasawa spoke. This was a careful decision. Really and truly, from the bottom of my heart, I am doing this for you. I did it for you. Why don't you understand that? Don't you want to get hurt because you fail to understand something I'm telling you? You're not an irresponsible kid, so understand. In particular, don't be getting the wrong ideas just because I happen to care. I'm not going to talk about lovers, destiny, or anything, because in reality, it was just not like that. We didn't even fool around, not even once. That was because I cared for you. If I had not cared, then with the right atmosphere and the right feelings, what might we have done? We could have wound up having some fun. But that I could not do. I don't think one can become happy just by doing that. Because of this, it was something I absolutely could not do. I don't want to do it. Well. Bonnery couldn't look at Coco's face. If I'm important, if I'm special, that love, if something different, is it not permitted to include love? Coming to love me, falling in love, loving one another, getting married for eternity, speaking that way. Why can't it be? Is it not possible? Yanagasawa's reply was a shake of the head. Yanagasawa was crudely telling her that it would not work, the two of them together. Bonnery was thinking that Yanagasawa would understand just how much he was supporting Coco. He wasn't blaming him, asking him to be flexible and not saying such a hard thing, because he was not that sort of guy. Maybe that's why he wanted to be friends. Not possible. A drop fell to the table. This way, in spite of remembering our childhood, even though I'm special, in spite of that, you're telling me there's no way? Then in short, it was my fault. That was how Coco was defeated. If she simply cried herself out, not her objectives, not her evidence, nothing would come to be more than just a pile of papers. Because I was merely something to be despised. Then, to whatever extent you have memories, however long a time you could give me in reality, there is simply no way. Could you not fall in love with me? If that's the case. In a small voice, he tried to call her. He was thinking it was time to give up. Coco not knowing how to pull back, again, sinking in depression before him. Bonnery wanted to hold her back. That's the reason I stayed here, he thought. But that voice didn't seem to reach Coco. If so, then I am already not needed, always unneeded, always forgotten, done without, made as if I've never existed. If there's one more thing that happens to me that cannot be undone, I will be entirely gone. Hearing what seemed to be a scream in that voice, Yanagasawa said nothing more, rising from his seat. Pulling his knit cap on his head nearly to his eyes, he swung open the door and went outside. The inside of the shop suddenly went terribly quiet. He realized that the other customers all had their ears directed towards them, curious. Bonri moved slightly, highly uncomfortable, when at that moment there arose the sound of Coco gulping for air. Bang! Coco's head struck her saucer, shaking it. What have I done? Coco watched Bonri, covering her mouth, opening her eyes. Tears ran down her cheeks. What have I done? Sorry, Tadakun. Sorry, so very sorry. Sitting down as if she were falling, she turned her crumpled face towards Bonri. From the corners of her tightly closed eyelashes, once more, tears. He was being apologized to, he understood at least. Bonri searched within himself. The Bonri who lived here as if nothing mattered at all, blowing up before that Bonri's eyes was indiscreet. Perhaps, but he wasn't hurt by Coco's words. It's all right, Kaga-san. I'm sorry. Really, since it's okay, at such a time as this, you don't need to worry about me. Sorry, Tadakun. Just now was nothing. You'll forget. You'll make it seem as if it hadn't happened. But it wasn't so easy to say that. The future being awfully difficult to manage.
Hello to our current and future followers. If you didn't know because you were recently hit by a truck and got isekai'd into another world, we recently launched a Patreon for those that wish to support us. If you enjoy our work, head on over and take a look. The lowest tier is around $1 in euros, or snooty money as I like to call it. This would feed our collective caffeine addictions as it would be like you're just buying us a cup of coffee a month. There are also higher tiers, but just contribute what you can. I'll even say something meme-worthy for you at the highest tier. Yes, I, Beast Alchemist VA, will lower myself to your standards. Every bit helps and you would be contributing to faster releases, and you would be supporting the narrators like me. But this ain't EA, y'all. Every chapter will remain free and ad-free on YouTube. Thanks in advance for all your support, it helps us a lot. And remember, when a robotic voice fails, subscribe to Isekai Audio Tales.